Hello and welcome to Unacademy. Today we are going to discuss the strategy for UPSC Prelims and Mains for the subject of history. History that way is a very critical pillar of UPSC and comes in the big four of the subjects of UPSC generally, with polity, geography, economics and history being the most important pillars on which UPSC asks questions both in the prelims and mains examination. But before we begin, let us first discuss a very important announcement, which is that the 24,999 price is going to last only till 1st July and there is going to be a 10% increase in the price. So I hope that you are going to become a part of Unacademy with regards to your preparation for the UPSC examination. And over and above that, we have already started a batch on 25th. Sarmat sir has started polity batch on 25th June and I hope that you've become a part of it. If you haven't, this is the right time with a 10% hike coming soon. The second important announcement for you is that if you are looking for a guided program for history optional, I am taking a guided program on Unacademy vis-a-vis a 150 classes, a 365-hour program under which I'm going to cover all the different aspects of paper 1 and paper 2. There will be a dedicated session for mapping along with answer writing, and we will make sure that history optional becomes your make and break for the examination. You can use the code AMOPT whilst opting for this optional to get a significant discount on the offer price and the fee of the course itself. So with this, let's start our understanding of why this subject is so important and what to do with regards to prelims and mains. Now, when we talk about history as a subject actually is not just one subject, but 6 different structural aspects are there to this whole syllabus. First is the idea of prelims and prelims oriented preparation, wherein you have ancient, medieval, modern, post-independence recently has come through. Along with that, art and culture. These 5 components come together and create the section in prelims examination, and I'll show you the trend of questions and the number of questions also. In the mains examination, specifically in GS paper 1, you have modern, art and culture, world history and post-independence. So again, you have 4 components which are mains specific. Thereafter, in the essay paper, historical context and a lot of quotes come out of the Enlightenment, which is quite important generally. And for your understanding of international relations, world history is very, very important. And even for polity, the constitutional history part of modern India is critical. So therefore, let's establish one thing, that nobody can clear this examination by ignoring history, and no one has, because even if in prelims examination you do not cover a lot of ancient, medieval, modern, art and culture and post-independence is critical. And the same case with GS paper 1. GS paper 1, at least 3 to 5 to 6 questions can come just out of history. It's a very big component, close to 75 to 80 marks out of this section. Now that I've established that ancient, medieval, as of right now, because in 2023 there was an anomaly. In 2023 mains there was an anomaly in the GS paper 1 where 1 question from ancient and 2 questions from medieval came in the mains examination also. Let's take it as an anomaly. We will only get to know in 2024, which is this year, that is this a new pattern which UPSC has introduced. As of right now, we will argue that ancient and medieval are for prelims, modern, art and culture are for prelims and mains both, and world history and post-independence is mostly mains oriented, with certain questions also coming from post-independence in the prelims examination this year, which is 2024. So out of the 4 pillars, history has 5 to 6 different components and they have their own place in prelims and mains examination, and therefore the preparation also has to happen in that context vis-a-vis knowing the purpose. Now looking at the pre-questions, since 2023 and for the past 10 years, the questions on an average, you can take it as 15 questions, with this year dipping to 12. However, on an average 15, 20, 14, 17, 14, 21, it has been hovering in that 15 to 20 questions. But this year there has been an exception made vis-a-vis 12 for 2024. However, this is only for prelims. In the mains examination, you will at least get 2 to 3 questions out of art and culture. You will at least get 2 to 3 questions out of modern India. And you will get at least 0 to 1 for world history and post-independence. Sometimes you don't get a question out of post-independence or world history, but at least your 5 to 6 questions are for sure with regards to history, geography and social issues. History part, you will get this type of combination. So in your prelims, at least 30 to 40 marks is in the hand of history, and in mains at the same point of time, some 15 markers, some 10 markers, together close to 70 marks is with history. So let's be very clear, it's a critical subject, it is an important subject, and as it is, because of its intersectionality with other topics and other concepts of the subjects, you have to go through Cold War politics, or even the geopolitical context of the world today has a lot of historical antecedents. The same way in any essay question, you would have to write about the historical context and how, and a lot of times the examples which are given in essay are also historical. So you have to have an understanding. Now that the questions are sorted and the importance of the subject is sorted with regards to UPSC, CSE generally, let's talk about the syllabus. What is the syllabus? And herein lies the anomaly where UPSC is extremely vague when it comes to prelims. In prelims, it says history of India and Indian national movement. So basically, history of India includes ancient, medieval, art and culture, but along with modern, they have specifically quoted the Indian national movement, which is 1885 to 1947, which is the formation of the INC till Indian national movement. Some would argue 1857, but 1857 is a restorative rebellion, not a moment of nationalism, vis-a-vis what we discuss in class also, and the established understanding with regards to academic history. So the reason why they've done this is because UPSC wants to highlight a section, and that is why from this area at least 60% of the questions come out of modern India. In modern India, 40% questions come out of the initial section, which is 1488 to 1857, but 60% of the questions come out of Indian national movement because that is directly quoted. And here, this is the vaguest you can be possible, but we start at 2 million BCE, that too specifically with Paleolithic, and thereafter we go on till the pre-British expansion, which is early modern period of 18th century. So everything comes under this, and therefore based on this, on an average 15 questions. However, for GS paper 1, it is more properly what we call as defined, wherein Indian culture, art forms, literature, architecture, straight away mentioned. Modern India, middle of 18th century, 1750 onwards, till present, and significant events and personalities. So basically present would mean including post-independence, which is also quoted separately. The freedom struggle, again directly quoted. That is why at least 2 or 1 question comes out of this area, because it is directly quoted. Contributors and contributions of personalities. Post-independence, consolidation, reorganization. So herein partition becomes very, very important, and linguistic and the other 3 phases of reorganization very, very important. Then last is world history. World history quoted from 18th century with all the revolutions, industrial revolution, world war, colonization, decolonization, communism and capitalism and socialism, all quoted. But here basically we have to cover, I'll tell you what do we actually have to cover in the approach. Here you have to cover between American Revolution to Cold War politics. That is the basic area which you have to cover. So in mains, it is more well defined. However, in prelims, it is a little bit vague, and therefore open-ended nature of prelims, and mains more defined contours in that regard. Now that we understand the syllabus, the critical question, what is the book list? Now the problem with history is this only, wherein there is no one book for all subjects or all the components. See, for ancient, we need a different set of books. For medieval, we need a different set of books again. Thereafter, for modern, we need a different set of book plus post-independence. And for world history, you need a different set of books. I would be able to solve this problem by the end of the year. I'm working on a book which basically has all the three major components along with art and culture, but that is going to be by the year end. That is a separate issue altogether. Now, ancient, you need 6th class NCERT, new, plus 12th class part 1. This is staple with R.S. Sharma, India's Ancient Past. Now, a lot of people use other books also, but the level of detail is too much. NCERT plus R.S. Sharma, if you want to add D.N. Jha, sure, but that is again increasing the number of books in this section. Medieval is 7th class NCERT plus 12th class part 2, wherein again new NCERT. Then here we have a very good book which is Satish Chandra. Satish Chandra, you can use the part 1, part 2, or you can use History of Medieval India. It is also a very good book. These two books are nothing but old NCERTs also, because the old NCERTs were republished by Orient Black Swan in the form of India's Ancient Past or Ancient Past and the History of Medieval India. Here you can actually not find any supplementary book because it is quite scattered. For modern, you have Spectrum, that is one-stop solution, plus NCERT 8th class and 12th class part 3. But for post-independence and the mains section of modern India, you need India's struggle for independence vis-a-vis Bipin Chandra. So Bipin Chandra, India's struggle for independence, and India since independence, again Bipin Chandra. These are two critical books for mains. Spectrum should solve your problem for prelims along with the NCERTs. For world history, we don't have any specific book. Arjun Dev is actually quoted, but the problem with the old NCERT is it is not written from the perspective of UPSC. So you can here use KK Reddy. It's a good book, has everything in one place. Norman Law, a lot of people quote, but Norman Law, the problem is it only starts from the First World War. So you need something for before First World War. Art and culture, can't ignore Nitin Singhania plus you also have to cover the fine arts, NCERT part 1 for sure, if possible part 2. A lot of people refer to CSAT website, that becomes too bulky. And for this section, you can also refer to Tamil Nadu Board. Tamil Nadu Board books, that is also quite good. But you can see now I have basically given you a list of 12 to 13 books with every subject having a different emphasis and need. And therefore, that is the tricky part here. Where do we find that one book which does not exist? And more than that, it is a lot to read for the what we call as certain subsection or one of the pillars. So what I recommend to students is, if you are going to systematically divide your studies according to what is needed for that subject, it becomes easier. Don't have to be fearful or scared of these books. If you cover them systematically, I will tell you how, through the strategy, you will understand it. And the nature of questions are also not factual. Factual plus conceptual questions are coming in the examination. That is the saving grace. So book list is the one where a lot of students get confused, and I've given you that book list. Here NCERTs are critical. Along with that one standard book is important. Now, what I want to do now with you is I want to discuss the trends of how the questions are being asked. Why? Because by understanding trends, we'll be able to ascertain what should be our approach. What is the purpose of this session itself? What is the approach that we understand through the trends? So, in ancient, we have both spectrum of questions. For example, this is called a theory-based question based on conceptual understanding. And this question basically needs a very good understanding of the Rigvedic period and the Indus Valley civilization and the different characteristics related to it. For example, the idea that was there any form of warfare in the Rigvedic period? Was there any form of warfare in the IVC? This statement is actually correct, that there was no evidence of IVC having any form of what we call as warfare in that regard. Then here, thereafter, Rig Veda used gold, silver, copper. Indus Valley only copper and iron. No, iron is wrong. This is a wrong statement that way. And this is also a controversial statement, but it is now properly established that the Indus Valley people through Surkotada, they know about the horse also. So this becomes incorrect and the answer becomes 1 only. The idea is very, very simple, that this needs a theoretical conceptual understanding, and therefore you have to develop an understanding of ancient. You just can't learn the facts. Same way, this question is based on the idea that do you understand the characteristics of the Indus Valley civilization, that did it have palaces and temples? No, it did not have. Did they worship both male and female deities? Yes, they did. Did they employ horse-drawn chariot? No. So here the answer becomes 2 only, but again you need to know the characteristics. At the same point of time, you have the other spectrum of the story, wherein you have the Shunga dynasty, which ruler mentioned in one of the Kalidasa's book. Here it is talking about Agnimitra and the name is Malvika Agnimitra of the book, but this is a factual question. This is the question which basically is tricky, because either you know it or you don't know it. For example, this one, that which is the future Buddha as quoted under the Bodhisattva concept. Here the answer is Maitreyi, and these 3 people are the same person itself or the same Bodhisattva, but again needs a little bit of understanding plus factual knowledge. Understanding plus factual knowledge. Now in medieval we see the same type of pattern, wherein we can have questions like this based on Mongol invasion. Mongol became a very common thing, wherein first Mongol invasion during Jalaluddin Khilji. During the reign of Jalaluddin Khilji, they marched up to Delhi and besieged it. Muhammad bin Tughlaq lost portions to Mongols. Now you need to know the Mongol theory, you need to know the Mongol concept itself, you need to know Delhi Sultanate. Here, this is incorrect. The Alauddin Khilji never lost anything, or Delhi was not besieged under Alauddin Khilji. However, this is correct according to the answer key which was given by UPSC, and the idea that Tamrashilin took certain areas from Muhammad bin Tughlaq. So therefore it became 1 and 3. But again, this is based on understanding. So you have another type of question which is based on understanding. The spectrum I am trying to show you here. Again, understanding based. Now, on the other side of the spectrum, this is a factual question, that do you know the way the Mughal Empire was divided according to the different terminologies, which is Pargana, Sarkar, Suba, Sarkar, Pargana, Suba, which is the ascending order from the smallest to the biggest. And here the answer was A, Pargana, Sarkar, Suba. This is a very standard question. It's a very easy question. But I am again trying to show you the spectrum of questions in that regard. If you go to modern India, again you get simple questions like this, that which of the following does not apply to subsidiary alliance started by Lord Wellesley, that what was not one of the purposes of the subsidiary alliance. So large standing army was one of the purposes, so this is not the option. Keep Napoleonic danger away, yes, this was also one of the reasons. Establish paramountcy, yes, and the answer was there was no income component to subsidiary alliance. Now this is called an understanding based question, where you need to apply yourself an understanding. And on the other hand, you can also have simple questions like this which came in 2023, that who gave due to the Portuguese? Bahadur Shah. Thereafter, through which act did Governor General of Bengal become Governor General of India? The Charter Act of 1833. This is again an easy question, but this year again we had a very interesting theoretical question, and we will need to see what is the answer which UPSC gives. But it was about Government of India Act 1935. The first statement everybody knows is correct, which is All India Federation proposed but did not come into existence. But because this is a tricky statement, this becomes a problem. According to the fact that hierarchy was applied, this becomes incorrect. If hierarchy was not applied, this becomes correct. But as of right now, we are going with the idea that the answer is A, but can be also C. But the concept is this needs a deep understanding of the 1919 Act and the Government of India Act of 1935, 1919 Act, the concept of hierarchy, how it is applied. So you can see there is a certain what we call as depth to the question also in that regard. In the same way, we can have a 2024 question in art and culture which can be extremely difficult, which is attributed to Bhasa, and here the answer was C, something which if you know, you know, you don't know, you don't know. But for this type of question, you need to develop a certain factual repository. But you also got questions like this, that which was added in 2023 only to Shanti Niketan and Hoysala, and something where you can actually see it's a very easy question, only 2. So we have, in a way, when it comes to the spectrum of questions in history, it can be from factual to conceptual and anything and everything in between. So your understanding and approach needs to again adjust for this spectrum of factual to conceptual. And why conceptual? Because when you go to the mains questions, they become even more interesting. This is modern India question, which is the revolt of 87 was a accumulation or a cumulative effect, accumulation of recurrent big and small local rebellions that had occurred in the preceding 100 years of British rule. There has, or why was there a sudden spurt in famines in colonial India since the mid 18th century? These questions cannot be answered if you don't know the concepts, which is that how was the concept of 1857 a culmination, the concept of culmination, that when you reach to 1857, it is not an unprecedented event which was random, but a culmination. So it's a cumulative effect of whatever has happened previously. So the culmination in 1857. Same way, if you don't understand the concept of land revenue, how it is related to commercialization, it is related to deindustrialization, you can't answer why famines became so common in colonial India, wherein there was a shortage of food because of the commercialization aspect. So herein you facts will not help you. You have to understand the concepts. And therefore, if you go to a question like this from art and culture, nature of Bhakti movement and its contribution to Indian culture, or contribution of the Gupta period and Chola period to Indian heritage, these are questions which are not factual. These are conceptual questions. You have to talk about the Guptas, where what is their contribution in each head, which is architecture, the concept of sculpture, painting, what they added. Same for Cholas. Same way you need to know the Bhakti movement nature, not the facts, but the nature of the movement itself. And if you move out to post-independence, again the questions are theoretical, based on understanding that the political and administrative reorganization of India and its states and territories has been a continuous ongoing process since mid-19th century. Now this basically is asking you to start from colonial and then talk about the 4 phases in which reorganization is still happening. So from linguistic to tribal to the concept of regional inequality to national security. This again needs a continuous understanding of the process of what we call as reorganization. Further, if you go to world history, the questions become even more interesting, which is there arose a serious challenge to democratic system between the 2 world wars. It's basically asking about fascism, but in a indirect way, which is how was democratic state systems actually challenged during the 2 world wars or in between the interwar period, and foundation of modern world laid in American and French Revolution. So that ways this becomes a whole plethora of conceptual questions. In mains we have to go for concepts, in prelims we have to go for concepts and facts. So how to approach the subject? Let us first understand what have we actually understood in the past half an hour. In the past half an hour, what have we established? We've established that facts are important, but not everything in history, because mains and prelims, there are conceptual questions coming in. Concepts are extremely important because that will make you get good marks in the mains examination. And we've also established the fact that understanding of core concepts is even more important. Everything cannot be ratified and everything cannot be seen through the same lens. There's a very big misnomer that you leave the factual part, conceptual understanding. Now I'll tell all of you a very important plea or a very important concept. Please understand this point, that a lot of people argue that leave ancient medieval. There's a lot of content everywhere and anywhere which says leave ancient and medieval, do modern, art and culture. Please understand this point. Art and culture and Nitin Singhania will make no sense whatsoever if you've not done ancient and medieval, because ancient and medieval is the political context in which art and culture actually works. Art and culture is the history of art and culture from ancient to medieval. So if you don't know the political actors, if you have no idea whatsoever about this, you will start to feel that art and culture is not making sense. So please do not listen to this suicidal type of argument and concept itself. Leave ancient medieval, do modern and art and culture. Please don't do that. Nothing will make sense. You have to cover it systematically, and I'm giving you the approach how to go about it. And I always argue this, that history preparation is like a pizza. You cannot eat it whole. You have to divide it systematically into pieces which can be digested by a candidate. Now, how do you approach? Now, what you do is you divide your approach into two. One, a prelims orientation, the other one, the mains orientation. So, for prelims, what we will do is we are going to cover ancient, medieval, art and culture, along with that modern India. But for prelims, we will cover the timelines, we will cover the personalities, we will cover the concepts, and we will cover the facts. But what we will do is that we will develop a rule which is called 15 minutes rule. See, the 15 minutes rule is very simple. Every day 15 minutes in the morning and 15 minutes in the evening. What I want from you is that you learn certain amount of facts, be it from ancient, medieval, art and culture or modern, and you learn it in the morning, try to remember it through the day, and in the evening revise it, so that if you remember them, very good, write them down. If you don't remember them, revise. Be it drought, cyclone or any form of natural disaster, you cannot leave this. This is based on discipline. The 15 minutes rule can be game changer, can be pushed into any other subject also, be it polity, geography, economics. But for history it is critical, because if you will try to learn all the facts at once, nobody can do that. It has to be done in small bite size, what we call as factual aspect. You can learn 2, 3, 4 as per whatever your capacity is, and the concepts, personalities and the timelines will come to you through this only. Timeline, if you develop, there's a certain story in your mind, and facts, if you will cover them systematically. Prelims orientation, we as it is have to learn the facts, because mains I will obviously start to learn the conceptual aspects. Now, because medieval and ancient concepts are also coming, when I read, I will make sure that I'm all clear with terms and the different concepts of decentralization, centralization, what is the aspect of Nayankara, Mansabdari, Ikta, all of this has to be covered. So, start with the NCERTs. That will create the base, and then move to the standard books. Standard books. This is the way you cover it. Go to the NCERT, develop an understanding, then go to the standard book, take the understanding further, keep on underlining and marking all the facts, and if you can collate them, very good. If you can't, no issues. Just use the 15 minutes rule to learn the facts. For mains, we have a different strategy. Why? Because in mains, I have to concentrate on modern, art and culture, in world history and post-independence. Now, what I will do is, I will cover post-independence and world history first, because they are main specific fully. So, I will cover them first, so that I have all the understanding developed. I have covered the syllabus. It will not take you a lot of time with regards to world history or post-independence, and then I'll leave it. I will only pick it up between the prelims and mains happens in May, September. In those 3 months, I will then pick up world history and post-independence, but can't be reading for the first time in these 3 months. It will become too much. And world history is important to write IR answers, so you can't ignore it also. With regards to modern and art and culture, when I was learning the facts, I was learning the concepts, but because in mains you need to have a descriptive understanding, because you have to write it down, whatever concepts I've learned, I will do answer writing, and I will try to articulate whatever I've understood in concepts onto paper. So therefore, I'm learning facts also. I'm learning the modern India and art and culture concepts, which I try to put on paper through answer writing. Through answer writing, your concepts will become better. Through 15 minutes rule, your facts and timelines will become better. Now, how do you go about with regards to the books itself? You start with the foundational understanding, which is NCERT. You can also push in, if you want, you can substitute it with Tamil Nadu board. The idea is you need foundational understanding. Further, once foundational understanding is done, you move to the standard books. Now here you would have to do one reading of both, and you will basically get an idea of everything if you're preparing yourself. Thereafter, you move to the next step, which is once the first reading is done, through 15 minutes rule and answer writing, I'll keep on revising everything. And then I will do the second reading of not the NCERT. NCERT is just for foundation, of the standard books again. And when I've done the standard books second reading, now I will try to elevate my understanding by now solving previous year questions. So you do the previous year questions once you've gone up this ladder and seeing that if you are able to answer the questions or not. There will always be 25% of the questions which are quite difficult. Don't chase them. Are you able to do easy and moderate questions? That is the real target, and not anybody or everyone in the paper cannot solve 100% of the paper. It is always 75%. In every subject, there will be 2 to 3 questions which are too difficult. Now, all of this can be negated also. How can it be negated? If you go into a guided program, for example, with us, I will take you from 0% to 100% in class, and you don't need to read the books. Maximum, you will go through the NCERTs. Standard book need is gone. So that is the difference between doing it yourself and doing it through guided program. So I will start presuming nothing, you know nothing about that concept, and I'll take you to mains level, prelims level, both. And in between, I'll ask you to read the NCERT. On the other hand, if you are doing it yourself, you have to gradationally become better and better and better. And NCERT plus standard book, one reading, then start to learn things, then second reading of the standard books, and then solve previous year questions to see if you're able to do that or not. This becomes a loop of learning and revising. So the strategy for history is very simple. Can't leave it for the end. You have to keep on learning and revising, and the more you learn and revise regularly, the better it will become. 1 hour to history in your timetable would be enough for 365 days, and you will be able to master history better than me in that regard. The fact is, learning and revision is a continuous process. If you are doing it yourself, as I said, a strategy for a guided program student is totally different. For an NCERT based, self-study based understanding is totally different, because you would have to go through one step to the next step yourself, and the fact is, smart hard work is needed, so you don't really know what to leave and what not to leave. That will be in a way a revelation which will come from the previous year questions. On the other aspect, when you're with me, I will tell you what to leave, what not to study, what is to be emphasized, what is not to be emphasized. And when it comes to the whole syllabus itself, remember, because you are preparing yourself, in ancient, cannot ignore Indus Valley Civilization, Buddhism, Jainism, and Mauryas, along with the culture aspect, which is Mauryan, post-Mauryan, IVC, and the temple architecture. In medieval, you obviously cannot leave, because some of you are doing it yourself. Medieval, you cannot leave Mughal India, cannot leave Delhi Sultanate, have to cover the cultural aspects of literature, architecture, painting, very, very important. In art and culture, generally, what you've covered through ancient medieval is generally important, which is architecture, sculpture, and painting. But here, you cannot ignore classical dances, you cannot ignore music, cannot ignore the intangible and tangible heritages, and other smaller topics, for example, foreign travelers, numismatics, 6 schools of philosophy, quite important. In modern, you cannot obviously ignore anything after 1857, but After 87, constitutional history is very, very important. Basic timeline is important. Quit India, INA, all these movements are important in that regard. In world history, cannot ignore American Revolution, French Revolution, the concept of unification, World War, First World War, Second World War, and Cold War politics. In post-independence, the most important is reorganization and princely state reintegration with partition. So I've basically identified the important topics for you also, so that you can concentrate on them, and you will also get to know about this once you solve the previous questions, that what I'm saying is basically the area out of which the questions are also coming. So with this, let's consolidate what we've done in this session. We first understood the book list, which I've given you, the most authentic one, which you can use to get a good understanding. Then I've also discussed the trend in questions, which basically tell us that both factual and conceptual knowledge is not needed. We've also seen the number of questions, which tells us that you cannot ignore history. You are basically creating a certain path to UPSC. If you ignore history, you have to make sure that in mains and in prelims, you're getting the requisite marks out of this subject so as to get a good rank and top this examination. Then we've seen the approach. Approach is start systematically with the NCERTs, then move to the standard books. 15 minutes rule, divide everything into bite-sized digestible facts, 5, 10, 15, whatever works for you. And for mains, keep on doing answer writing, understand everything from the mains level books and try to put it on paper. It will help you. And that ways, history as a subject can be managed easily if you are disciplined and it's integrated. If you will leave it, if you will leave Nitin Singhania for 8 months and pick it up in the 9th month, it will become problematic. So systematically cover everything, and I can guarantee to you, it will become a strong point rather than a weak point. Other than that, we are always there. From Conquer Prelims to Conquer Mains to different other programs which we do on YouTube. We'll always be there to guide you. And if not, you have the best opportunity to join our course also as of right now. But for a student who is doing it itself, you can do it. You can do it. You need a good disciplined timetable. So with this, I would like to end the session. Thank you so much. I'll see you in the next session. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.